Welcome to The Big Rich Show. This podcast will focus on conversations with friends and acquaintances within the four-wheel drive industry. Many of the people that I will be interviewing, you may know the name, you may know some of the history, but let's get in depth with these people and find out what truly makes them a four-wheel drive enthusiast. So now's the time to sit back, grab a cold one, and enjoy our conversation.
Whether you're crawling the Red Rocks of Moab or hauling your toys to the trail, Maxxis has the tires you can trust for performance and durability. 4 wheels or 2. Maxxis tires are the choice of champions because they know that whether for work or play, for fun or competition, Maxxis tires deliver. Choose Maxxis. Tread victoriously.
Why should you read 4Low Magazine? Because 4Low Magazine is about your lifestyle, the four-wheel drive adventure lifestyle that we all enjoy. Rock crawling, trail riding, event coverage, vehicle builds, and do-it-yourself tech, all in a beautifully presented package. You won't find 4Low on the newsstand rack, so subscribe today and have it delivered to you. On today's episode of Conversations with Big Rich, we have Scott Trimarco. Scott is the owner of Scott's Custom Off-Road. He's also an engineer. He's the pump guy, and he's one of our rock crawling competitors at We Rock and other places in the Northeast. And he's from Altoona, Pennsylvania. Scott, so good to have you on board today. Hope everything's going good.
Yeah, Rich, it's great. I'm excited to talk to you. I'm privileged to be on this show with all the other people that have been on it so far. When you asked, I said, "Oh, that would be fun." So.
Absolutely, it's always fun. People will even friends of yours that you're around a lot will hopefully learn some things today that they didn't know. That's what typically happens. So we'll see how this goes. So let's ask the first question, which is always, where were you born and raised?
I was born and raised in actually Hollidaysburg, Pennsylvania, which is only 3 miles from where I live here now. It's in Duncansville, which is just sort of a suburb of Altoona, and born in Altoona Hospital. So it was, this is where I was born and raised, and I still live here basically. I moved away for 3 months for a job one time, but I moved right back. So
you must really like the area.
Yeah, you could say that.
Excellent. So let's talk about those early years. School, bicycles, motorcycles. What was your thing?
I was, I guess sports was my first thing. I played baseball all the way from like pee-wee up to high school ball. And I quit playing around 11th grade or so, and politics got involved a little bit, I think, and I just didn't really care for it anymore. And then I played golf, and my dad was a big golfer, and so I learned how to golf when I was around 12. And he took me golfing a lot, and I actually went with my grandmother a lot too. She golfed a lot, so learned how to golf. I was decent. I played on the high school team. Played a couple matches and stuff. I could shoot in maybe the 80s, but somewhere in maybe like late grade school or junior high, we had a new neighbor move in, and he gave me an RC monster truck, a Tamiya. I think it was a Bigfoot or something, and it was like I hit the jackpot. And I remember it was winter time, and I drove the thing in the snow, and it was just a blast. And it was, hobby grade type of thing. And I was really into Legos before that. So, this was like the next level of putting things together and seeing how they work and stuff. So I continued with that. I kept, I was like really into RC stuff while I was doing the sports things. And so I cut grass and saved money for more RC cars and airplanes. I got an airplane for Christmas, and like a 5-foot wingspan trainer model that I never learned how to fly, but
Was
I
it
put it together.
was it completely remote, or did it have like the wires attached?
Well, backing up a little bit, I did have one first with the wires attached.
Okay.
I remember my dad used to have to start it for me, and I would fly around, spin around in a circle. And I used the heck out of that thing. And then I think that's what drove the getting one for Christmas of the real RC plane.
Wow.
So I got one of those, and I put it together in the wintertime after Christmas. And springtime came around, and my dad was like, "Come on, let's take it out to the field, and we'll try to fly." Well, he said, "Let's just drive it around. You can, maybe taxi it around, make sure everything works." And we made a mistake. We left the wings on it, and we shouldn't have done that. And he's like, "Just make it hop up in the air a little bit." And well, I did, and it just went straight up in the air. And he's yelling, "What are you doing?" And I'm just saying, "I don't know." So it came crashing down and just smashed into a bunch of pieces, and it was balsa wood. But I rebuilt the whole thing and got it looking like it originally did, and never flew it again until I was in college. And there was a local airport, a little RC airport around here, that I took it there, and a guy flew it for me, took it off, and I flew it around. We had like a connection between our remotes, and anyway, I got to fly it briefly, but he landed it and stuff. So
When I was a kid, I had one of those, spin around in a circle, have the thing. I flew it for a total of maybe 15 seconds, and it totally destroyed it. I don't ever remember flying it again.
Oh
or
my
getting
gosh.
another thing like that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think maybe there was a difference. Mine was plastic, so it took a beating. That spin around one, it was a Corsair, I remember, and it was a little 049 Cox engine, and it got crashed a lot, but it just kept going and going.
So when you played baseball, what position did you play?
I was pitcher up until about 8th grade, and most pitcher and center field were my main positions. But in 8th grade, I hurt my rotator cuff.
Oh.
And it was like real cold out, and I didn't warm up enough or something. And I just remember from that day on, I had tons of pain in my shoulder. So I got scans and all kinds of different doctors looked at it and things, and I never had anything done with it. They just said, "Well, it's probably bruised, but we're not going to do any kind of surgery because you're young and they heal." So, I ended up, I'm left-handed, so I ended up learning how to throw right-handed.
Wow.
And I couldn't ever be quite as accurate with my right hand, but I could do it. And I used my dad's mitt because he was right-handed. And I remember multiple times there were some instances where I was in center field then because I couldn't pitch, but I could catch really well and run down the ball. So I would take my mitt off and throw sidearm with my left arm to be of any accuracy. And I remember doing it and throwing a kid out at first base, and I was like, excited about it, but it hurt real bad.
I can imagine shoulder injuries are tough. So
Yeah.
Is it something that still bothers you?
No, it doesn't. It just it went away over the years, mainly that year, and then it just got okay. And I never pitched again, but I played center field and the outfield in high school, but never had an issue with it after that. There wasn't a definite diagnosis of you like tore it or something, and it was just mainly I think you bruised it. So
okay.
Yeah.
And so when you were in school, were you studious?
For the most part, I was never one to I guess I tried to follow the rules as much as possible, but I never really cared to be there. My mind was always on RC cars or planes or something to do with that mostly. Even when I was playing baseball or golf, and I was probably thinking more of how can I build something or something more in the engineering lines of things. So
And how did your basis in engineering come about? Was it just something that happened, or was it something, you have a family member that was involved in it?
no, I don't. In fact, I remember this specifically in first grade when they ask you, what do you want to be when you grow up? I said an engineer. And I said, I want to design cars. And I'll always remember that, but I don't know where I got that from. I don't know if my parents had said, jokingly or just, oh, what do you want to be when you grow up or something, and had said that. So I didn't have any real close relatives that were engineers or anything, and certainly not designing cars.
Right.
And so I just headed in that direction in my head, even though like through everything else, I always liked to draw vehicles and stuff like that. And then, building with my hands and Legos and RC then. And that was just kind of the natural tendency. And then in high school, the guidance counselor was, helping kids pick what they wanted to do. And, if they wanted to go to trade school or college or find a job or whatever. And, that was the engineering stuff was what interested me the most.
Interesting. So with in those high school years, did your school have electives, or was it just the core classes? So did you get a chance to do auto shop or anything like that, or was
They had a few. I think the best one that I had was drafting.
okay?
And I had 3 years of drafting. And at that time, it was like I graduated in '02, and AutoCAD was sort of new, and we had AutoCAD 2000. I think that was my second year. So in my first year, we had like hand drafting still. So we learned how to do that on, a table, and how to do hand drafting. And that was like, everybody that wants to become an engineer or thinks they want to do anything with that should do that. Actually, draw stuff with their hands. That taught me the basics of all the basic engineering stuff and how you design parts, and how you would build or draw a print to build the actual parts.
Right.
So that class was amazing. I had a great teacher, Larry Gallo was his name, and he used to take all the kids in our class on a canoe trip every year, which was like the highlight of school. So we'd go on this big canoe trip, but he was our drafting teacher, so that was probably the best elective I had. I had one that was another class that had you had to do like an internship between 11th and 12th grade, and I had one at my internship was at PennDOT, which our Department of Transportation, and it was pretty worthless as far as engineering goes. Got paid well, but
Did you have to hold like shovels up or something?
no, we drove around in a car and measured the road width. I remember we called it the Road Width Verification Survey, and that was my summer project.
Huh. Tape measure or electronically?
Yep. It was me and it was a college student that I was with, and him and I drove around on these back roads, state roads, and we would get out every like couple tenths of a mile, and we had a meter in our car, and get out with a tape measure and measure the width of the road. And we had a way to record everything, which road we were on and which state route it was. It was a really interesting job. We saw a lot of, I got to drive a lot and see a lot of our area around here within the couple county area. I really enjoyed that part of it. It just wasn't engineering.
Right.
It was kind of silly.
Yeah, one of the jokes that I had, having grown up in California, was that the Caltrans trucks at that time were orange, and so whenever we were working on it used to be a landscape contractor, and we'd go to lunch and pull up into convenience store or something, and if there was a Caltrans truck there, it was like, hey, what's big and orange and sleeps for?
Yeah.
Be a Caltrans truck, because there would always be guys in the truck sound asleep.
Yep.
Or the other one
yeah,
is, Caltrans just laid off 50,000 employees. Really, what happened? Oh, the Japanese invented a shovel that stands up by itself.
Yeah. Oh yeah. My grandmother is a seamstress. She's still around, still does the seamstress work, and they used to joke all the time about she made shirts with pockets upside down so they didn't have to hold onto the shovel. They just stick the end of the shovel in the pocket.
That's awesome. Oh God. So then, from high school, you ended up at Penn State. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. There's a branch near me. It's in Altoona, on the other side of Altoona from where I live. It's only about 10 miles, but it takes like a half an hour to drive there. And went there all 4 years. The main Penn State campus is only about 45 minutes from me, north of here. But this program that I think my guidance counselor is the one who helped point me in that direction, was more of a technical engineering degree. And at the time it was called a 2+2 program. So you took either 2 years of electrical engineering technology or 2 years of mechanical engineering technology. And being more of a mechanical mind, I remember a buddy of mine and I we took the class together, and we were like, let's get the electrical part out of the way first, and get it over with. And then, maybe it'll be easier after that. Well, it wasn't really that case. It was still pretty hard, and I had to study really hard to get through it. But like I said, all 4 years there at the Penn State Altoona campus, and saved a lot of money. I didn't have to live off campus. Still lived at home, and I wasn't too much of a partier. But in college, I mostly worked on my truck, my Toyota, my 4Runner.
Okay.
And when I should have been studying more.
All right. So, was that your first vehicle?
That was my first vehicle. I guess you could call my own. My dad got it for me for a graduation present, call it that. My birthday. My birthday's in March, so before we got graduated, around my birthday, he got me this. It was a 1988 Toyota 4Runner. It was the first year with the V6 in it, and it was 5-speed. It was like a sports car, type of thing. To me, it was like electric windows and locks, and had a sunroof, and you name it. And it was the first manual I drove too. But before that, I must have drove 30 cars in high school. And
how's that?
I know you asked certain questions about what cars you drive and things. Yep. So I'm probably jumping the gun.
It's all right. There is no order.
Well, so my dad used to buy and sell cars for fun or just to make some extra money, and I think mainly he was always into that sort of thing. His dad had a used car lot, but he had passed away long ago when I was little. So my dad kind of did that, when I was growing up, and to help the family make some extra money. And so he would buy a car, and the funny thing is he didn't really do any of the work to them. He knew all the people though that did that stuff, right, because of his dad. So he would take them and get the body work done, or get the engine fixed, or this and that. And then he would do the salesman part, and that's what he liked, to deal with the people. And so, and when I got my license, we always had an extra car, the one that he was selling, So I would drive that to school, and then he'd sell it, and then he'd buy another one. I'd drive that to school, and it was just always something different. So,
out of all those,
an adventure.
Out of all those cars, what was the coolest one you got to drive?
probably wasn't until my Forerunner. He was more into the big boat type of cars. So it was a lot of Oldsmobiles and not Cadillacs, but Oldsmobiles and Buicks. I had a pretty cool Buick though. It was a Buick Regal. It was a 3800 V6. Still had a carburetor. It was a 1986, I think. It was like maroon with a white vinyl top on it, and it was an automatic, but it was fast. And I was probably in 11th or 12th grade or something when I had that, and he said to me one day, he's like, "Oh, my something happened to his car," and he said, "I need to borrow that car, to drive to work." So I had to ride the bus, and I was like, "Oh man, this is terrible." And later that day, we get home, and he's like, "Oh, I got pulled over driving your car."
Uh-oh.
Because it was too fast, and I don't know if he wasn't used to it or what, but he was going too fast in a 35-mile-an-hour zone, and he got pulled over in a notoriously bad spot for cops. So
you should have known better.
Ironic. Yeah, exactly. Should have borrowed a car I was driving.
There you go. So you're doing the engineering program, the local Penn State.
Yep.
There in Altoona, and you go through, and it was a 2-year, you said, or was it a 2 plus different. 2? What?
Right. It was
how long were the classes?
You did 2 years of like electrical or mechanical. So I did the electrical 2 years, and then you basically got an associate's degree, but then you start again in the electromechanical part of it. And the program, it was actually called Electromechanical Engineering Technology.
Okay.
And so you got a bachelor's degree at the end. So I really had 2 degrees, but it was all put together.
All right.
Yeah, so I did all 4 of those years here, and took some summer classes. It was challenging. I didn't have it easy. I wasn't like top of the class or anything, and it was definitely tough, and especially when I wanted to like go 4-wheeling and work on my Forerunner instead. It was distracting me from what I should have been doing.
Were there any other distractions at that time?
No. I was pretty nerdy. As far as like 4-wheeling, I mean, that was like, I don't know, I was getting into it back then, and even though I was pretty much the only one of my friends that had a 4-wheel drive, so I was working on it, and like I'd research on the internet about what people were doing out west, and I wanted to do the same thing. But yeah, that was my main distraction.
So when you say you were researching, tell me that it was Pirate.
Oh yeah, I lived on Pirate. Yeah, it was probably, that was the main site that I would go to, and the first thing I wanted to do was solid axle swap this thing because it had independent front suspension. And, if you wanted to be rock crawling, you had to have a solid axle. So I researched, what to do, but I had no money, so I couldn't do this. And the other thing in the way, the other problem was my parents would have never let me modify my vehicle. So I had to figure out a way to do that.
Without them knowing?
Yeah.
That's how I had a motorcycle.
Yeah. That was the thing. My dad probably would have let me have a motorcycle or like dirt bike growing up, but my mom was an RN at the hospital, and she was there for 40 years and finally retired recently. But because of her, she would see kids in there with broken arms and legs and all kinds of problems from doing that stuff. I was never allowed that.
Right. So then you get your degree, and you got a bachelor's in electromechanical engineering.
Yep.
And how did you use that?
I didn't even use it right away because I looked locally for a job. I didn't want to move away. I don't know why. really. I think I just, like, I enjoyed it here. I did do some fishing and hunting, and I had a grandfather that I went and did that stuff with a lot. So, that was involved, and I, I guess I just wanted to stay around here, and I had some relatives that were like, you should go to South Carolina or somewhere else, that has more opportunity. But I ended up starting. I worked as a maintenance technician at a local factory that made tubing,
Okay.
mainly copper tubing, and I started there right out of college, and no maintenance or no work experience or anything like that, but I loved it. I got to do a lot of stuff that really helped me out to this day, and so I got to do, like, I got the machine parts, I got to repair tons of machinery that like they had drawing tubes that were from World War II, that were used for drawing out casings for bullet shells, and so that's how they made the tubing for the casings, but they also used it for making any kind of tubing. So I got to just work on all kinds of old stuff, and like mechanical machinery, and that was really interesting to me. And I worked there for exactly 1 year, and the whole time I was there, I was thinking, I'm keeping my eye open for an engineering job, because if I stay here, I'm just, I'm not going to get hired as an engineer somewhere. So I applied a few places, and one of the coolest places I got to interview at was Honda. And it was the Honda Research and Development Facility in Marysville, Ohio.
Okay.
So I went for an interview, and at the time, my wife was I was dating my wife then, and she went with me, and they paid for everything for us to go there. And interview was really cool. And I think the one thing I remember from it was that they asked me, we're looking for an engineer to work on automatic transmissions. And I said, they said, do you have any experience with automatic transmissions? And I'm thinking to myself, I mean, it says on my resume I worked at this factory for 1 year, and I just was out of college. There's, like, how would I have any experience with them other than in my garage or something? And I was like, no, I don't really, but I said I've worked on manual transmissions and transfer cases and things like that. But I said, I really don't have any experience with automatics. So never didn't hear back. So I contacted them, and they were like, yeah, we picked somebody else.
That sucks.
So it does, but it's okay. I'm glad I didn't move there. I hated the flat landscape for one. And the other thing, I probably wouldn't have married my wife. So
Okay.
she probably wouldn't have moved there with me, and we had only been dating for less than a year. So
Let's talk about that. How did you guys meet?
we met through friends, and it was kind of a blind date, except I knew about it, and I just didn't know her though. A friend of mine was helping me out in the garage working on my truck, and he was like, you should meet this Lauren girl, and I think you'd like her. And then him and his girlfriend set up a big party kind of thing, where a bunch of friends, we all went to this one person's house, and they were like, oh, well, this is Lauren, and this is Scott, and so, and I'm like, she was surprised, and I was kind of like, I knew that was going to happen, although I didn't know her yet. So, we hung out all night, and that was how it started. And we got each other's phone numbers, and we dated for about 2.5, 3 years or something like that. So, we've been together actually today. It would be 15 years since we met each other.
Wow.
So,
wow.
Yep.
That's pretty good. At 15 years, you can remember the date.
January, it's 19th, right?
Yeah, I couldn't even tell you that. I
I
don't
think
know
it's the
what day
19th.
of the week
If it
it
is
is.
stays the 19th, then yeah.
Okay. That's good. Good on you, man. You keep that
Oh
up,
no,
and
it's tomorrow. Tomorrow's the 19th.
tomorrow's the 19th. Okay. Well, at least you knew it was the 19th.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one of those things that as you get older, if you don't get it figured out, you never will. So I'm
Yeah.
glad you got it. That's bonus points.
Yep. Yep.
So then you get back. Honda didn't happen. What else?
Well, I kept applying for jobs, and I found this one that was about 2 hours from here. It was working as a contractor for Grove Crane, and they've now become Manitowoc Crane, which is a huge company worldwide. And at the time, though, it was at the facility in I can't remember the name. It's near Waynesboro, PA, and I had rented I got a job there, and I rented a house in Waynesboro, and I worked at that place, and it was not what I thought engineering was. It was a large engineering department, had lots of people, and I was in the hydraulic cylinder department. Coincidentally, that I do stuff with that nowadays, but
Yep.
um, I didn't really design anything. It was kind of manufacturing ordered this cylinder. Can you design or like put together these parts in CAD so that we give them this whatever size cylinder they want to do this job. So things had already been like designed out, and we just kind of put them together. I don't know. It wasn't exciting at all. It wasn't like learning anything new. I don't know. It was really boring. And so I was like, boy, I really need to find something different. And my dad called me, or I talked to my dad one day, and he's like, hey, there's this job opening in the newspaper here back home that has like it sounds like it's what you wanted to do, and it's at a place that's just a few minutes down the road, and you should apply. So I didn't even have a computer, and I didn't have a smartphone, so I was like, how the heck can I apply right now? I don't want to wait till I get home on the weekend. And so I went down, I found the library, I go in the library, and they were like, well, you have to sign up for a membership, but you get one free day. So you can use whatever you want, the computers and stuff here for today. And I was like thinking to myself, I only need one day. I'm not going to be back here ever again. And I filled out application, and I sent in my resume, and ended up getting a job back home here. And it was called News Printing Company, or NPC, and they didn't print newspapers anymore, but that was how they had started. And they did lots of government forms and printed booklets and different things. It was mainly printing and some packaging of the printed stuff. But they had a really small engineering department, and it was only two guys there when I started there, two engineering guys, and so they had just gotten SolidWorks right before I started there, which I was familiar with from working at that previous job. So, and I had learned a different 3D CAD program back in college. So I really liked design stuff in 3D, and I was excited when I started there that they had had this program. So we, the three of us, took care of designing new equipment or additional add-ons to equipment, and it was a huge, it was a change every day. It was something different, and I really liked that to just, it wasn't boring at all. It was always something changing or something breaking and something you had to figure out. So I liked doing that, and I was there for 11 years.
Wow.
Hmm.
When you moved away, you were still dating when you went and worked at
Yeah.
the Cylinders League. You were still dating.
Yes, I was, and I drove home every weekend, and it was in the winter time too, which was terrible. I remember driving in the snow so many times, coming home or going back down, and it was just like, it was torture.
But it was worth it.
Oh, it was worth it. Yeah. Oh, definitely was worth it.
So 11 years with the newspaper company.
Yep.
And What was the next step?
So the next step, and this was only about 2.5 years ago, I started at another factory right down the road from me, even closer than the newsprinting company, which is Root, and they make parts and stuff, like parts for fuel dispensing. So parts that go on fuel trucks or in gas stations. Pretty much all the stuff you don't see is what they make there. And I'm a manufacturing engineer there, and I take care of these different production cells that produce electrical consoles and some mechanical parts and a variety of things. They make a large variety of all different components, and um, it's an interesting job too. I think because it's such a variety of things I get to do, and I've so since starting there, I've implemented SolidWorks, which they didn't have, which was a huge tool that I used for years before that, and so I was excited to be able to bring that onto there, and I been involved in a bunch of projects, and I'm enjoying it there so far.
Good. Then let's talk about Scott's Off-Road.
Yeah.
You're that probably all started with working on the 4Runner, correct?
Oh yeah, definitely. I didn't have the idea for like creating the business for a long time, and but I worked on people's stuff forever, and since having like the first couple years of having my 4Runner, and I started modifying it, and that was in college, and people, I guess, my friends would be like, hey, you can help me do this or that, and that I ended up getting a welder, just a 110 welder, and a tubing bender. But I lived at home, so I couldn't really use any of that at home because they used the garage to park the cars in, and I couldn't work in there. So I borrowed garages forever. I mean, it seemed like a long time. I would borrow a friend's garage and work on my stuff or work on his stuff. And then I did a whole motor swap in my Toyota in somebody else's garage. And it was just always moving to somewhere different. And over the years, I guess I started doing so much of it that by the time my wife and I bought our first house, that was in 2009, I had been working at that NPC for about a year at that time, and I finally had my own garage. And so it was a basic two-car garage, 8-foot ceiling, and not much space, but I could pull two vehicles in there. And at the time, I had my 4Runner had become a pickup, and there's a big story about that one. But and I so at some point in time, and I can't remember what year or anything, but at work, when I was at NPC, my boss was like, you know what, you're using your phone a lot, so I want to get you on a phone plan. And this phone has to do with me starting my business, by the way. So
thank you, NPC.
Yeah, it was it changed my life for the most part. Getting this phone, if you can imagine that, but not that, I mean, I guess it's not changing my life that drastically. From what I was able to do, I had to get a smartphone. I had a flip phone before that, and he was like, you have to get a smartphone because you got to have email. So pick a phone. So I go, I get a phone, and I've had it for a while then, and I realized that I should, create a website. So I create a website, and it's Scott's Custom Off-Road. And I don't know what, I couldn't think of anything better. I'm terrible at naming things.
All right, what are the kids' names?
Oh, well, I was just going to say, I'm glad I had, I wouldn't have been able to name them anything if it wasn't for Lauren.
There you go. Okay.
Levi and Michaelin.
Okay.
And so that's their names, my daughter and son. And Yeah. I wish I would have thought of a shorter business name because it's too long. And anyway, this phone, like I was able to do that and create a website right from my phone. And and you know, that was weird. I never thought I could do such a thing. And I'm not like an internet guy. I really am not a computer guy. I just typed in, how do I make a website or something like that. And so I started just putting pictures on, and I had made some parts for my Forerunner that I thought people would like or use, and I did a bunch of drive shaft work. So I would make drive shafts. I had a lathe, a small lathe.
So you made
And
round ones, not the Toyota square ones.
yeah, I never made a square Toyota drive shaft because
Congratulations.
yes, yeah. I found a company in Wisconsin um, that sells rolled spline shafts and in the mating coupler that goes on them. So I still buy this material from them and I'll machine it and make drive shafts out of it, and you can buy it in any length you want. So you can have a drive shaft with any amount of slip.
Wow.
So on my Toyota, I remember welding two of the female spline sections together to have more slip because my front drive shaft would pull apart all the time. And I was like, there's got to be a better way. I'm a freaking engineer. I should be able to figure this out. So I found that company, which was hard to find. There wasn't too many things available like that, other than like a agricultural drive shaft, they were all too small. So that was one of my things I started like advertising, and I sold a few, but it was hard to buy. I don't know. I just wasn't, like up to speed on like how to buy things or how to buy parts like yokes and stuff like that. So I would take old ones and cut them down and add the tubing and the spline part of it to other people's existing drive shafts, and that was a majority of it.
Okay.
I did some roll cages and some exo cages or whatever, bumpers, built a bunch of bumpers. I think those were probably the main things that I was like, that's what started it. But I didn't have a company, it wasn't an LLC or anything back then. So then a friend of mine connected me with another friend of his that he used to work with. And this other friend worked for a company that was a government contractor, and they would build parts for like weather balloons and blimps and things. It was like I don't know if it was some top secret stuff or what, but he would just give me a print and say, "Here you go, make this."
Interesting.
And he needed, yeah, it was really interesting what they were doing. But they required an LLC at least to be able to get paid. So he was like, "You need to do that. You should have it anyway." So I looked up how to do it, and the whole LLC thing. I even got an employee identification number, a federal one, and I did it all myself. Did it all on the internet and sent papers back and forth to the state and got all that stuff squared away. And it was super cheap. And I had heard that people pay thousands of dollars, but somehow I figured out how to do it for like I think $125. So that was like the next step in becoming a business. And I mean, all this stuff was still on the side, when I would come home and work at night or work on the weekends.
Right.
So I built some parts for this blimp guy. I just called him the blimp guy back then. And, there was this one project that he was involved with called Project Loon, and it was a Google project. And there's potential that some of my parts made it onto this thing, and I was really excited about it. I looked it up on Google and tried to find out if I could see a picture of it or anything, but I never did.
It's Loon, Loon?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
And what was it? What did they do with it?
It was something to do with they would put weather balloons up in the air, and they had communication devices attached to these weather balloons that would I think a lot of them were for cell signal, And the one that I did read about on the internet was there was a big hurricane had devastated an island in the Caribbean somewhere. I don't know if it was Jamaica or something like that. And they were able to fly these weather balloons around in a pattern, and then they would like cycle in a circle or something, and like they wouldn't get lost, wouldn't just drift out over the ocean. They were able to control the height and like drive them kind of, and it provided service for the island that like they lost all their cell towers.
Okay.
And so it was interesting. It was a cool job that I got to make a couple bucks on. That was like my first real job that I did for as a business, even though it wasn't for off-road stuff.
But that's cool where you can do something outside of outside of your bubble, you might say.
Yep.
So then with your steering pumps, how did that all come about?
So on my Toyota, I mean, this is where I pretty much spent all my time, was like figuring out how to make this thing work right. And so it went from a 4Runner to a pickup, and I think sometime when it was a pickup.
Okay, before we get into the steering pumps, let's talk about this transformation from a 4Runner to a pickup.
Okay.
What happened?
I'll try to make it. I won't try to drag it out so long because there's a lot to it.
That's all right.
So the 4Runner that my dad got me in high school, it had 200,000 miles on it, and I put about 50,000 miles on it in the time that it was a 4Runner. And during that time, I solid axle swapped it without them knowing, and I drove it home and got heck for that. And my dad said, you're going to kill yourself driving that thing. So I had made my own steering, my own high steer arms and all that stuff, because I couldn't afford to buy the ones from All Pro or Marlin and stuff back then. So I made them, and I worked at a machine shop part-time in college, so I was lucky enough to learn a lot there and make all this stuff. So it let's see, I rebuilt the engine somewhere in like 2004 or 2005. It was a 3.0, which was notoriously bad, and blew the head gaskets twice. And then so the second time rebuilt the engine, and then it was a solid axle at that time. But then I was driving to a friend's house, and a friend and another friend was following me, and where we were going was near our junior high, and I went to school, and they had this big parking lot, of course. So it's raining, and I go over in the parking lot because I don't even know why. I go over there and I do a donut, and it didn't even do half a turn, and it just rolled over. And it was pretty tall then. It was like, I think on 35s, and like that was big. Nobody had 35s back then, at least that I knew of. And it was pretty tall, so I just smashed it. It rolled over on its side, and I got out through the windshield because the windshield flew out. And but my buddy was behind me, so we get out, and it's pouring down rain. And I get out, and I had a tow strap, so we hook it up to his I think an Explorer, and we hook it up and roll it back over. No problems. It's sitting there, looks like it's fine from one side.
Right.
So we're standing there like, well, let's see if it starts. Nothing. Won't start. So we hear sirens, and then police and the fire department and the ambulance all show up. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. And my buddy's house that we were going to was like a block away. And we couldn't even, they beat us, the fire department beat us. Then they got there before we could evacuate. So they were like, oh, well, it looks like everybody's fine, nobody's hurt, and it looks like it's drivable, so see ya. And that was it. And
wow.
So we drag it over to the sidewalk, over the curb, and park it. And the guy we were going to his house, this kid my age, he had just bought a 1985 Toyota pickup, and the frame was rotted in half.
Imagine
And
that.
exactly. And you know what? Oh, so good. It was perfect because I bought the title and the cab from him, and he sold the axles to somebody else. And I got the cab and title for $500, and so I was like, yeah, I know what I'm doing. I'm building a truck. I'm going to put this cab on my 4Runner frame, which is the same body design and same body mounts and everything. So that was when I bought my tube bender, and I built a tube bed for it. And it was modeled kind of after the old, I said it earlier, like I don't know if it wasn't Marlin. It was,
The All
oh
Pro?
my gosh, All Pro. Yeah,
Okay.
All Pro had a cool looking bed kit that they sold, and I made my own. So I bought tubing, bought a bender. I couldn't even bolt the bender down to the floor because I didn't own a garage, and I was borrowing a friend's garage. And it came with like the lever that you had to pull, and the JD tube bender. So, but his dad wouldn't let me bolt it down. So I had to come up with a way to make it like hydraulic or something. So I did the air over hydraulic cylinder that everybody does nowadays, and made my own clamp, and used my 110 welder for everything. And I welded the whole bed together with a 110 welder flux core. So I drove that for a long time, and I drove it. That was my daily driver. Um, so whenever I bought the house and finally got a garage, then I wasn't sure. It was shortly after that I got pulled over for the last time, because I got pulled over in that thing like every other week. They hate it around here when your tires stick out. It's a huge no-no. Um, and they stuck way out, and it was really tall. Like, it just was unusual to see a Toyota truck that was like this around here. There was nobody else like it. I had a snorkel on it. It was on the driver's side. It was a big black tube, and it was homemade, so it was kind of unusual. But I got kind of threatened by the last time that I got pulled over, and so during that time, though, when I was driving, I'd drive on the road, and I'd drive it to go four-wheeling, and I drove to Roush Creek, and I drove to Paragon with it, and I had an issue one time with my steering pump. So that's where that started, and that's so we can talk about that now.
Okay. We came full circle. Perfect.
Yeah, we came the whole way back to the steering, because when in that truck, it had a stock steering on it, and when it was a truck, though, I swapped the motor, and it was a 3.0 originally, and then I swapped this in a 3.4 liter, which was super common. Everybody did that, and they had the 3.4 stock steering pump on it. I think it lasted, I don't know, 2 or 3 years like that, and I finally did hydraulic assist on it at the end of its life. I should have done it at the beginning, because it was, I don't know, that I tell everybody that now, because that's like new into four-wheeling, to do hydraulic assist right away. It's just a huge improvement.
Absolutely.
And I ended up breaking my frame where the steering box mounts, and that was the last straw. I had to do hydraulic assist when that happened. But so I did, and then the pump went, and I was at a local place, and when that happened, so I put another stock pump on it. So then we drove to Roush Creek to go four-wheeling for the weekend, and I don't know, might have made it till 10 o'clock on like a Saturday morning, and the pump quit. So I called a local parts store, and they had a pump, so I go get one and put it on. And like Sunday, we were camped out. And Sunday morning, we go out four-wheeling again, and then it did the same thing. I'm like, this is ridiculous. So, like, you can't buy a pump that works. And I get back home, and I put it on jack stands. Oh, I got back home, and I took the pump back to the parts store, and get another one. I put it on in the garage, and it's up on jack stands, and it won't turn. It had no power. It was bad already. So, and I was like, this is enough. I'm done. I'm done with these pumps. I can come up with something better. So I took the pump back, and I just said, give me my money back. I don't want another one. So I had done a little bit with hydraulics and stuff at work, and I built a log splitter in years before that. And, it wasn't like, super familiar with all hydraulic stuff, but it wasn't out of scope for what I could do.
Okay.
So that's when I bought a gear pump, and it was like, it wasn't even close to what I'm using nowadays, but still a gear pump, and it worked great on that Toyota truck with hydraulic assist, and it was a much smaller pump and different design and stuff, but it didn't have quite as much load on it that like a full hydraulic system does. So it worked great, but then I really didn't, like, I guess when I put it on, I didn't really do a whole lot of experimentation. It just kind of worked, and I thought through it for a while before I tried it, but when I built the buggy in 2013, I was like, this pump isn't going to cut it. I need more flow, because I need to have all the flow, go to the ram, and not, it's not going to be in the steering box only. So it's just going to be full hydraulic. So I just need more. I need more flow. I need a bigger pump. I need a better way. And I did a lot of experimentation with how to connect the pulley to it. And these pumps aren't designed to connect or to be driven by a pulley or to be side loaded. So, I went through a lot of different designs on how to do that, and different ways to hold a bearing. And the pump's much larger than a regular stock style steering pump, so like fitting it in is tough, and there's a lot of space constraints and things. On the buggy, I guess it wasn't so bad, because I could work around it. I was planning that while I was building the chassis. So that was like, so 2013 is when I first started using it on the buggy, but I had done it for a few years on the truck, and I didn't really start selling them until about 2018.
Okay.
So I used it for a long time and went through a lot of testing. I remember being out, four-wheeling, and it would be like, I have a problem with my steering, and my buddy Dan, Dan Eicher.
Yep.
He'd be like, just buy a pump. Just go buy a PSC pump. Quit messing around. And I'd be like, no, this is what I want to do. I want to figure this out. There's
See,
no
that's the
way.
difference between the Jeep guy and the Toyota guy.
Exactly. And
that right there.
Yeah. Being the Jeep guy, you just bolt parts on that, and he'll probably give me heck for saying that. Yeah, I got heck numerous times for messing around, because I'm being the buggy guy now. I'm always working on my buggy, is what he would. I'm always under it or working on it, or something's wrong, or versus his Jeep just ran and he didn't have to do anything. So he said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how successful has that pump been business-wise?
To me, I think it's been fairly successful. I think, there's different markets, I guess, for it. And it's such a niche thing that I'm not sure what to compare it to. So, like I compete against the $200 or $300 pumps, and so that's tough, because it costs 3 times more than that, or it's like, my base price is $600, so it's tough for some guys, and to want to jump up to that. But it's also got the performance of the $2,000 TT pumps.
Okay.
As far as flow and pressure, it's, as far as I know, it's the highest pressure pump, out there for steering, and I'm limiting it to 2,000 psi, which, I think maybe the next lowest one might be like 1,800 psi or something like that. Then some of those TT pumps use external relief valves similar to mine, and so they're adjustable too, and people can change that. But so I try to, all the years of four wheeling and things that I try to be really economical with like how I do stuff. So I want it to be, affordable, and try to figure how to make the best product as cheaply as possible or inexpensively as possible.
And still have a quality product.
And still have a quality product. Yeah. And it's really challenging because, it's that way with anything really, but, I've done well. I've done better every year than the previous year. In the last 4 years, this will be my 5th year of selling them. That it's been each year's increase in sales, and I know last year sales doubled in January, and I was just like, "Holy cow, this is insane!" From the previous months before that in the previous year. So it was like, off the charts.
All while under COVID.
Exactly.
Okay.
Which was really odd. I don't know what's going on, but the end of the year it tapered off more or less, and not tapered off, but it just slowed down. And I don't know if the economy has to do with it or if it's seasonal. Some of it is. It's kind of picked back up here in the last few weeks, month or so. People are tearing down their vehicles or looking for improvements now, and one of the biggest markets for it is the rock bouncers,
right.
And it's I've heard numerous comments from the racers, the drivers, that it is game changing because they have so much power and technology in their suspension nowadays, that they can go so fast, but they can't steer.
Right,
and
the steering couldn't keep up.
Yeah, the steering can't keep up, and they race a lot of like short woods trails, and so they're between trees and rocks and things, and so they would hit trees and just have to stop and then rev the motor to get the steering to turn and then go again, and it's costing them time, and every second counts. These guys times, you're winning by 1,000th of a second, which is it's insane. The competition is incredible.
Right.
And so I have a bunch of pumps on these guys' vehicles down there now. It's super exciting. I'm just beside myself on how well they've done with it. It was never intended to work that way. These guys are running super high RPM. In my little crawler, it's like 5,000 RPM max, and typically, it's like less than 2,000 RPM, and so that was one of the limiting factors for this pump originally, was like, oh, I can't go too high, it's just not designed for that. But there's been guys running this pump over 10,000 RPM.
Wow.
Which is it's crazy. I mean, and it works, and it's I've had failures, but it's definitely been a surprise at how well it's really been holding up. This year is going to be really exciting. Tim Cameron bought a few pumps last year, and he put one on his new race vehicle. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm planning on going to a race this year in Kentucky to watch. I think it's in August.
Excellent.
So it'll be the first time to get to go see those guys, and I know a bunch of them. And it's funny, my son, he's only 6 now, but he'll turn on YouTube and watch the bouncers on TV, and I'll be like, oh, I didn't need that guy there. He's like, hey, Levi, that guy has my pump on his buggy. That's really fun.
So, any other product that you have that's a key part of the business?
There's I guess, a couple other things I make that are much less significant than the pump. I guess maybe the next one would be I make a Toyota style midship bearing, or unit bearing,
Okay.
for drive shafts, and I had to redesign it recently because Marlin stopped selling their 30 spline flanges. So I was using those flanges, and I was making my own 30 spline shafts for these unit bearings. And I machined all the parts. I cut the splines on the shafts and get them heat treated and all that stuff. So they stopped selling those, and I had to redesign to use a 29 spline Toyota pinion flange, they're much more common. So changed it to that, and I was like really tempted. I took it off my website, and as soon as I did that, I had 3 people ask for them. Man, these take so much longer to make that I'm going to increase the price to $100. And they were like, okay, no problem. Like, oh, I just don't have time.
Yeah, you try to. Sometimes you try to price yourself so you don't have to do the work.
Yeah. One of the other things I make that go with the pump is a reservoir, and the pump needs a large reservoir ideally, and I make a 1 gallon reservoir. It's pretty simple. It's just a box and some fittings, and I priced it pretty high, and I was like, I don't want anybody to buy this. And I sell a bunch of them.
Because everybody wants like a package.
They do. They do. And so that's like the next step is packaging more of the components together. So
Right.
I'm working on that to get like a complete package. I've done it for numerous people, but it's just piecing things from here and there. And,
So not only the pump and the reservoir, but a cooler,
orbital, ram,
everything. Okay.
fittings, pulley. I do sell pulleys a lot, but they're just, I just look them up on the internet and buy them.
But that saves somebody else trying to figure that out.
Yeah, exactly. So I do that a lot, and I don't have online sales. This still, you can't just click on a button and buy this thing. I don't want it to be right now, mainly because it's so different still that I wanted to talk to the people, about their application and how it works and how you install it. Even to like, they send me pictures and can I put it here? How can I locate this? Or, can I use this part with it? Or can I use this cooler? Or what fittings do you need? There's so many questions that they have. I feel like if they were to just click on the button and buy the thing, it would have more opportunity for failure.
Right.
So I leave it that way for now.
So where do you think it's going to go? Do you think it's going to ability to move away from working for somebody else and you can just do that? Or is it always going to be a side hustle?
I don't see it at this point being a full-time job because I don't think the market's big enough.
Right. Too niche. Yeah.
Right. It's not going to fit everybody. And regular steering pumps have their application too in different you don't need to go fast, or you don't need that much flow. So yeah, it does have its limitations as far like to fit it in every application. So that's limiting it on like its reach, where it's being used.
Okay.
Although it's still growing. I've sold a bunch to Australia, some in the Middle East, even lots to Canada, and of course the Southern bouncer guys are still increasing there. So it's definitely niche though. So I don't see that being my full time. I would have to have. You can tell I've thought of this numerous times, but I would have to have a bunch of products similar similarly sized to that to be, I think, independent of, on my own. The
Right.
bearing one's pretty good, but it's niche too. So a bunch of these things all together maybe would work someday, and that's I always think of that. So I maybe someday, maybe when Levi is old enough to help me out in the garage, we'll be able to go on our own.
There you go.
Yeah.
So let's talk about your event promoting.
Yeah.
How'd that come about?
You're talking about the rock run thing,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Okay. Yeah. Well, back when I had my Toyota truck, there was, rock run's only a half hour from me, and it's mainly an ATV park. But there was a guy there that volunteered, had a Jeep, and he wanted to put on these like Jeep, full size 4-wheel drive vehicle events, and I was like, we should do a rock crawl. I go to these rock crawls, and I go to these ones at Roush Creek, and I've seen the We Rock ones. I don't think I had done a We Rock event at that time. I'm pretty sure not. So he's like, yeah, how do you do it? And I was like, well, I'll just use the rules that We Rock uses, or like Roush Creek, whatever, we'll combine them or something. We'll come up with our own. So he was like, yeah, let's do it. So I come up with this idea, and he didn't like it. He wanted to do something completely different. It turned out more like I don't know. It wasn't a rock crawling competition, and so the first time we did it, it was 6 friends, and I bought some cones, and I set up the cones in the area where we had the rock crawl, and I always knew this area would work. It was like a large outcropping of rocks, and there was, at the beginning, there was 3 trails on this rocky area, and there was a lot of trees between the rocks and stuff. And so the 6 of us did it, and we was like, holy cow, this is awesome. We had so much fun. And the next year we did it again, and it was like, I don't know how it went, maybe like 12 people. And friends of friends came, and it just grew over the years, and I did it for 7 years in a row. I think it was about 7 years, yeah. And I think I started it right after, like maybe in the last year I had my Toyota truck, and when I built the buggy in 2013 is really when it was like popular around here, if you want to call it that.
Okay.
So there's nothing like this around. I mean, people ride dirt bikes and ATVs like they're going out of style. But as far as 4-wheel drive vehicles or full-size vehicles around here, there's some Jeeps and stuff, some Jeep guys, and but there's nothing like, there's no buggies. And so when we, like, maybe the second or third year we did that there, I got some sponsors to donate some prizes, like parts and a winch and numerous things, camp chairs, all kinds of stuff. And we had a raffle, and we got some banners made, and I had it was kind of like trying to be legitimate, a rock crawling competition. And I had done the RC rocks at Roush for numerous years with my buggy, and so I really liked doing that. But it was different. The rules were different. I was in like a class that I didn't really like, maybe. So, and I wasn't in unlimited back then with my buggy. So I had created my own class rules for my own competition, and it was just 3 classes. I'm thinking what they were. It was modified, super modified, and unlimited. And it was kind of like based on what the vehicles were that came to it. And it wasn't quite what like your rules are or Roush's rules are. It was more loose probably than those.
A little fluid.
Yeah. We didn't. It was really fun. It wasn't you didn't win money or anything. We had I had a friend of mine make trophies that were made out of broken parts and plasma cut parts and things like that. So, you got this like crazy looking trophy, and then you bought some tickets for a raffle, and that helped me pay for all my stuff I had to buy. And and we had a big raffle at the end, and we had somebody cooking food, and it was a blast. But it was so much work. You know how it is. So it's incredible what it takes to do that. I was like getting really burned out at that, which is crazy because it was only one time a year. And so I had wanted to do like a series. We had Roush Creek in mind, and I don't know if there's any other ones or anything like it around, but I had talked to the people at Roush and some guys that organized it there, and they were like, no, we're not doing that. Nope. And I think I convinced maybe them to do it a little bit, but it didn't work out. By that time, I was already kind of tired of it. So when Hans started his series, the X-Rock, him and I talked about combining my event and his series, and I was like, holy cow, this is amazing. I'm so glad you're doing this. Oh, it was different, and I didn't have to work as hard, and I got to drive my buggy in the event, so I was a competitor back again.
Right.
And I like that. So last year in 21, we were gonna do it again, and the park isn't the easiest place to work with, I should say. And they have a lot of events scheduled for ATVs and things, and so you got to schedule around those because we're secondary to all that stuff. We're not bringing in thousands of people like they do for those events, so it's that's their priority. But the scheduling just didn't work out. We were limited to like I think April or something to do the X-Rock event there, and it just didn't work out. So we didn't have an event there, and I told Hans, he was apologetic because he was like, look, I'm really sorry. I'll help you out somehow. Just let me know what I can do. And I was like, look, I'm okay. Don't worry. I'm if we don't have it there, I'm okay with it. I had my fun, and it's just that was kind of it. I think I'm.
It ran its course.
It ran its course, and it was a good timing for it. There was nothing around except for the Roush events, and it was only the club comp events. They I think they had stopped doing the RC Rocks events, like the main. They used to have a series,
right?
3 or 4 events a year on top of the club comp events. So at some point they stopped those, and it was only the club comp. It was like a combination. One was a combo event where you had to have 4 vehicles and a team, and so it's a completely different ball game. But there was no other game in town except for you, and you came around once a year, so it was like we need something else to do. And people came from everywhere for that thing, and then now Hans has his series going. So I think it was a little fill in the middle, interim between the RC Rocks and the X-Rock.
Right.
So,
and I hope that Hans's events can continue. I know that for us, it was hard when we couldn't get the teams to come out.
Yeah.
When we were there, they wanted more events closer together, and we just can't do that.
No.
I mean, we have to service as much square miles as we can with our events, and the Northeast, what I would call Northeast Pennsylvania, on and on up, just was not enough participation.
No.
So I apologize to everybody up there, but if you guys don't show up, I can't do it.
I agree. Yeah, I mean, I would not hold an event that nobody comes to. It just doesn't make sense.
No.
And for me, it was like I couldn't I couldn't turn down doing the RC or the rock run crawl events because we were having like 25 competitors show up.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm like, well, geez, I guess I have to keep doing this.
Exactly.
Or else somebody's gonna have to do this. This is like, people want to do it. Okay, let's keep going. But yeah, around here it's really challenging to find enough people. They want to, I don't know, they want to go camping or something, or like just go driving around in the woods, more or less, and not so much be on the competitive side of things. And yeah, people still don't know like what rock crawling is and what a buggy is. They just don't know. It's just very uncommon around here.
Well, and there's a lot of places that is the case. I come across a lot of people that will say, "Yeah, this is my rock crawling Jeep," and I look at it and, okay,
Right? Yeah.
it's not even built as like my Cherokee. So it's like, okay, doesn't even have a dent.
Yeah, you're not really probably rock crawling if you don't have any dents.
Exactly.
Scratches at least. Geez.
So what's next for Scott?
I don't have any huge changes. I don't think. It's just the pump thing. I have another revision for, so I'm going to be putting out a new design. I have to make some improvements. There's a lot of improvements on this new bearing support design.
Okay.
So that'll be coming out shortly, in the next month or so. That's probably the biggest thing I'm working on. I built a plasma table last year. It's a 4-foot by 3-foot CNC table. So I have a little bit more capability now. I can design some stuff more easily that I test it out. And I designed 2 different bracket systems for Jeep 4.0 motors to mount my pump on.
Okay.
I haven't set pricing or advertised them yet, so first to hear it. And those should be available very soon, so I can start. Nice thing is I can test that stuff really quickly and start making it. I only had an opportunity to work on a Jeep with a 4.0 only recently after all these years. I've worked on so many Jeeps, but never had the chance to mount a pump on one. So I'm mounting one on is one in the garage right now for a friend that he's gonna test it out for me. But
excellent.
I've already bolted it on another Jeep, so it should be good to go. But yeah, just I think bracketry for different motors. I have some other ones I want to make for LS motors, on top of a couple I have, and then the new pump bearing design will be coming out. I'll probably sell more of those Toyota unit bearings, and I might get some help, mass producing some parts on that, so I can sell at least some of them and not waste so much time manually machining every one of them.
Right.
I have a person, and you covered this story or this thing in your magazine a long time ago. My Toyota rear disconnect.
Right.
I have a guy that wants one, like real bad, and he won't take no for an answer. So if I can ever get the projects out of my garage and get my buggy in there, I have to take mine apart to draw some of the parts that I never did draw, and I just made them on the fly, so I can duplicate it and sort of come up with a kit. If I make one for this guy, I'll probably be able to sell them. It's just I really don't know what the market for that would be for a Toyota rear disconnect. It's just it's going to be expensive for what it is.
I think that you're going to be really surprised. Because that's the Toyota guys' biggest complaint is, man, I can't do front digs.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, I have to mention Dan again. He's the one who kind of drove me to do that, and I really didn't want to. I was just like, it's stupid to put one in a Toyota. I'll just buy a Dana 300 or something and put in there. And it'll do it just fine. But, you know, I'd already had a Toyota Doubler and all the gearing and all that stuff. I didn't want to have to buy that again. So you're right. I mean,
And
like,
thousands
guys
of guys
in that
do.
same boat.
Yep.
Yeah. I don't know. I want to get it in there and start on that project this winter so I can at least get the drawings made up for it and make some parts and stuff and you know, make another one or make a couple of them at once. That way I can sort of prove out my manufacturing design. And
Cool.
yeah, that could be a future product.
Excellent. Well, Scott, I want to say thank you so much for coming on and sharing your history in off-road and how you got to where you're at now and your engineering. And it's great that I love to see guys doing what you're doing and building stuff and trying to do something different out of the box than just buying something off the shelf. So
Yeah,
kudos to that. That's how this whole industry.
Thanks.
That's how this whole industry has been from day one.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's doing the stuff that nobody else does that is gotten us where we're at now.
Yep, absolutely. Well, again, thank you so much for coming on and spending some time with us.
Awesome, Rich. Well, I appreciate talking to you, and it was a blast for me. And you know, I enjoy you asked the right questions to get the answers, the things I never thought of, or you know, the things I've forgotten over the years.
Well, good. I'm glad I was able to pull something out. Excellent.
Yep.
Okay. Well, thank you. Talk to you later.
Yep. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
If you enjoy these podcasts, please give us a rating. Share some feedback with us via Facebook or Instagram, and share our link among your friends who might be like-minded. Well, that brings this episode to an end. Hope you enjoyed it. We'll catch you next week with Conversations with Big Rich. Thank you very much.